Welcome YouTubers to Dragster Life Shop. Today we have a 2000 Jeep Cherokee Sport. Just recently done an oil change on it and had quite a bit of fuel in the oil and had a couple leaky injectors. Still trying to straighten that out. And the timing was, the engine timing or ignition timing was kind of wonky and was not able to get it straightened out. But one of the problems that this client has had with this vehicle, another one of the problems, it's been going on for quite some time, that was not really important to address, was the only way these windows could be put down was by the master switch over here on the driver door. Those switches over there would not work. Now, this is a common problem on these Jeeps, and the reason for it is right in here. I apologize. I don't have the best lighting in here, but right in here, where the, well, I can't find it now. Okay, the rubber grommet that goes from the body pillar right there. Well, right there. See the hole there? And where it goes into the door. The wires inside that grommet, they get a bunch of, they get kind of hard and they break. Some of them even break all the way through. Now, what some people try and do, and before I get to that, let me show you so you have a better understanding of what I'm talking about. So this is your master switch for the driver door panel, and of course you have your window lock. You know, you don't want your kids to put the windows down and jump out the back windows when you're going down the road. This is your switch to lock all the doors. This is your auto button for the driver's side window, passenger front window, passenger rear window, driver rear window. Okay. Usually on these Jeeps, this is the culprit. Well, this is part of it. This is maybe about 75% of it. The other 25% is in the wiring harness going from the body into the door that I showed you just a minute or two ago. So you have to take this apart. Now these are the buttons that go on the switch. Now, you've really got to pry these things up carefully, but they are kind of hard to get off of there, but they will come off. And get into the board, and there's your window lock switch. This one still sounds good, but if you look closely, well, I don't guess this phone's going to focus, but right there you've got two solder joints for the switch, and they are notorious for getting small cracks in them. Now this one is in good shape, which for me, it's easier to take this master switch apart than it is to want to deal with taking the wiring harness loose, because as you can tell, it's a lot involved. So what you do, take out that out of the rocker molding, you take out that screw, and then there's another screw right there. Okay, that'll give you enough play. You've got one screw in the kick panel, which is up in there. Actually, it's a nut. See you can see the stud sticking out straight ahead. So you take that 10mm nut off of there, and then you can pull the kick panel out from underneath the rocker molding. Then some folks, I've seen other videos where this is the connector plug that has to do with the lock switch, the window lock switch in the door panel. Now, some guys, I've seen in other videos, they use a jumper wire to go from the, not the black, obviously, because that's the ground, but the yellow and the tan wire. They'll jump it. The only problem with that is that you are, there's a reason you have to jump it. Whether it be in the switch in the door panel, or in this case, because the switch that I have here is in pretty good shape. The solder joints look good. However, the wiring does not look good. So we have a heavy gauge, well, kind of heavy gauge. Red wire right there. It's broken. Well, not broken, but it's, well, it is broken. There's a really bad spot, and then right beside it is another one. And if you can't focus real good on this thing, but they are corroded. Now, that one's not as bad as the ground. The ground is the one that can cause a variety of problems in a lot of different places on these Jeeps. Okay, so we've got 1, 2, and these are just breaks in the insulator. Now, I'm not saying that all these go, the wire is severed inside in all places, but I found that this one was broke off. As you can see, I've pulled the wires through a little bit and then back and forth. See, this ground was actually making metal contact inside the door. It doesn't look like it's ever been, it doesn't appear to me that anybody's ever been inside this harness before. It still had all the original loom on it from Chrysler, Mexico, or wherever it came from. And but this ground wire was actually making contact, and this happens because of a lot of vibration. These wires, and then they get old. This vehicle's a 2000, and it's, you know, this vehicle's 19 years old, 20 years old, excuse me. Still getting used to being 2020. And you know, these wires get old inside that rubber grommet, and they get hard. The jacket gets hard, and then the wire just, you know, becomes brittle inside, and it breaks. So all these plugs, these 3 plugs right here, they go through the hole in the body pillar right here, post, if you will. They come out and plug in to these 3 right here that are mounted behind the kick panel. So what you need to do is release the hood cable, or unbolt the hood cable assembly, release cable assembly. Get that out of your way. Take the plugs apart. So at this point, because the ground wire on this vehicle is in such bad shape in that area, I'm kind of like, okay, we need to go through this entire ground, starting at the pin and all the way inside the door. So these are the switch connectors for the, well, these are the connectors for the master switch. Lower plug, upper plug. So, and then of course you have to come outside the door panel, the metal door framing, because you don't want this wiring to get caught up in the window as it's going up and down. So that's why you run it on the outside of the door frame. Do not change the routing of this. Leave it alone. So you've got the window regulator motor there, and then back here you have the lock actuator. Now, all the locks worked in this vehicle. The windows worked, you know, with the exception of those, and then you have the door speaker wire connector here, and they sometimes cause a problem where the speaker will quit working, and what it is the pins inside get loose and they don't make good contact, so you lose your speaker. So If you ever have this problem with your speaker going out, you might want to check that before you throw a new speaker at it. However, you still have to pop out this screw and this screw to get the speaker out. But once you do, turn your ignition on and wiggle this connector around to see if your speaker starts working again. If that's the case, then you need to either clean the contacts, the pins. You can tell these are a little bit, well, don't have the best light, but I can see it. These two contacts are a little dirty, so I don't know if this speaker was still working. The client never said anything about that. But if it was working, it wasn't going to work for very much longer. But hey, the vehicle is 20 years old. Still has the original speaker in it. So, original stereo altogether. So, and it works. So, I kind of jumped the gun on this. I was going to do a step-by-step on how to take all this apart, but it is pretty straightforward. Like I said, you got the two screws in the rocker molding, and then you got the one stud nut up here in the kick panel. Take it off, remove it, and one thing that they did with these connectors is they have that little black mounting strip right there. Get a screwdriver in here. You see me moving it here. They just mount the two studs in the body. You can see one of them back in there. It's a little dark, but you need to pop that loose with a screwdriver. It just pops right off because the connector locks are on the back side here. You need to push them in with your thumb, pull it out. Shouldn't be that hard. All right, well, I'm going to stop this video right here because I've got to get back to work on this thing and check these other wires. Oh, well, I'll go ahead and tell you. If you have issues with those two wires, you better check the smaller wires too. You see this ground here is pretty heavy gauge wire. But you want to check the other wires, and that's just slightly twisting, bending, seeing if they feel like kind of like jelly, real flimsy. If they're real flimsy, you know, find a good spot on the wire that you know is in good shape. That's kind of a common sense thing. So then you just trace it through, slightly bend each wire. Take your time on this. I mean, I started on this yesterday. And, you know, I'm just getting back on it this morning. Take your time taking the door panel off because you will break those clips. There's no way to avoid it. So don't let that get you upset. They make them every day. You can get them somewhere if you have to have them. And I'm talking about the little clips that mount in the door panel that pop into these holes in the door all the way around the perimeter of the door. Now, you've got, I'll show you on the door panel, you've got this weather air, cold air thing that goes over the door panel, between the door panel and the door. That is like some kind of self-adhesive glue, as you can see around the perimeter of this whole thing. You're going to rip that, and you can't avoid it. There's just no way to avoid it. All you can do is put it back together the best you can. Just try to tear it off in one big piece. As you can see here, you've got this staggered, this little dotted line, if you will. This is where you can leave the speaker in and then just continue, make your cut with a utility knife. As you can tell, I ripped it off all in one piece. Removed it. Let's not use the word rip. Okay, so then here's your door panel. You have your door handle right here. That's on the bottom. You'll have to, this will be, you'll have to take a screwdriver or a small pry bar. Don't get in there with a pry bar that, you know, you can move a car with. And you just pop this little lock off the rod coming from back here from the latch assembly in the door. And then you have the lock, the door lock. You pop it off the same way. You turn them up. Well, it'll be on the car, so you'll turn them all the way out as far as you can. Pop the rod out. Push the rod away from the lock. The rod comes in and rides inside a little hole in this lock on both of them. So they usually ride like this. That means they're in the lock position. They're not going to come apart. But when you release them, you need to release them like this and like this, and slide the rods out. This one you'll slide up. The bottom one you'll slide up, and the top one you'll slide down. All right, now as far as your bolts, your screws, whichever, to even start taking the door panel off, you've got one here, one here, one here, in the armrest, and then you got one in behind the door handle. And don't forget this one, because that one's very important. That one is obvious to see, but very easily overlooked. And if you overlook it, you're going to break this whole corner out of here, and it's going to look like crap. So, and not to mention, it's going to be loose and vibrating and all that. So, okay, so now we're back. Well, I guess that's about it, really, on this video. I think I'm going to do a part 2 to this video. Yeah, I will. I don't want to make this video get too long. You guys get bored. Stick with me on this thing, because if you're watching this, then obviously you're either thinking about doing this yourself, or wondering if you should even attack this job. So it's not a hard job, but I say that because I've worked on them many times. Your first time's never going to be easy. Just figure it's going to take you, if you take your time, it's going to take you a while to do it. If you live near me, then call me and we'll set up a time and I'll do it for you. But I'm thorough on these wires. You should be too, because though you look like you got a break in that wire right there, that thing could be broken somewhere else. So there you go. That's why I pulled the wires out completely, so I can inspect them and make necessary repairs and try to get this thing back together today. Though it doesn't look like that's going to happen. I've got other stuff I got to work on. So anyways, well, okay, that's it for this part of the video, part 1 of this job. Stay tuned for part 2. And if you're new to the channel, give this channel a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, hit that little notification bell beside the subscribe button, and that way you can check out other videos currently on my channel and get notified when I post new videos. All right, guys, thanks for watching.